So we have a rankings group. I think we'll announce that on our Instagram when we start our rankings group on the Instagram, which will be this week. So you guys are getting a sneak peek into these rankings. We're going to announce these people that are involved in this. So I'll hold that thought for now because we have more people coming on board to make this group even bigger, to give us a more detailed look at who needs to be mentioned in these rankings. And of course, mathematically, how they're put in there according to how they're ranked by each individual AP poller, I guess, right? Or person that's being put in this place. And if you think there's guys or gals out there, by the way, that would make for good representatives in this group that we put together, they don't need to know everything about the sport. Maybe just a lot about their demographic, because we learn from one another as well. Yeah, have them get a hold of me, because I think the more the merrier in this, because it's going to give us a broader look at the community at large globally, and it's really going to allow us to narrow it down and start a conversation about people that deserve the conversation to be started about. This group, right, this rankings group, we spent the last couple weeks dissecting a lot of competitions over the last year, let's say. Not just OSC, but Champions League and SCL and PSL and Arnold and the Nationals and Shaw Classic and OSG and, the bigger events that would arguably have the best athletes at, right? Because if you're not competing at that level, then you can't really argue. It just means that you're not ready to compete at a high level, or you're just dodging the competition, I guess. And you might be an outlier that deserves to be mentioned on this list, but you don't compete at a real high level. It's going to be hard to find you, and it's going to be hard to make an argument for you, because there is some head-to-head involved in this. There's finishing and placing in competition, where you're competing, of course, at what level, and head-to-head part of that competition, where your finish is, but not necessarily any one is more important than the other. It's a combination of all those things. Because as you'll see on this list, or here on this list, there's going to be some strong women on the 64 list that you go, wait a minute, OSG, she was here, but she was here. We're not using one show to determine where these rankings need to be. And by default, in the past, we've always kind of used OSG as that. I think some of us would agree. When we see OSG rankings, we go, oh, well, that's your top 10. That's how that should fall. But that's not necessarily true, and we know that. Objectively, we need to look at it from all these different competitions because it's about consistency. It's also about events, as we know, and we're not all great in every event in strongman or strongwoman. So you shouldn't be penalized for that either. One year at OSG, you could be better than the next, but it needs to be looked at constructively, and I think we did a good job doing that. Now, I will say for the top 10, I'm really dragging this out here, aren't I? What I'm saying here is for the top 10, we had little disparity in our top 5. So I'll give you kind of a little behind the scenes of the way we were all talking about our 64s. 64s we felt like would be one of the easier classes to rank with little argument. I think most of you guys would agree with us out there. However, what we discovered was after our top 5, you could have took it out to top 15, top 20, and boy, it was tough. We really had to take a closer look at where these ladies fell, who they competed against, what their current state was in competition, when they last competed, and where they competed at. And it became a bit more tighter. I mean, when we did our mathematical calculations, there were 4 or 5 places out of like the 6 through 10 that were literally decided by less than like a point or 2. And I'll make a reference to that calculation once we nail it down exactly and tweak it, but I'll share it with you guys. And it's just based on averages really. But we found that many of these girls were within a point of one another. It was crazy the way they were ranked. So not a lot of disparity in the 64s. So that made it really tough to rank the 64s outside of top 5, outside of top 3, 4, really. At that point, it became very tough. Tougher than I thought. So we went back and forth in our conversation. Guys would lobby certain women, and then we'd take a look at them, go, yeah, that's a good point. We kind of move 1 or 2 around. 1 or 2 maybe have gotten pushed out. So I'm going to give you that top 10 list, and I'll give you a couple notables as well. And these were honorable mentions, I guess, right? These were kind of women that we felt were kind of on the bubble, and there's probably a couple more than this, but I don't want to take it too far out. I think these were just some that were a part of that conversation that ended up kind of just being on the outside of this top 10. Okay. All right, so let's get on with the actual rankings. I know you guys are like, come on, man, let's just do this. All right, I got you. All right, so our first one, and I don't think anybody can argue this. Arguably, the consensus number one in the world right now is Rhea Lovelace. The second is Holly McRae. The third is Shannon Clifford. The fourth is Kira Rickson. The fifth is Kate McConley. The sixth is Taylor Woods. The seventh is Diana Juarez Ferrer. The eighth is Antonio Verrecchia. The ninth is Carly Oliveira. And the 10th is Panda. So that's our top 10. And there might be, again, a bit towards the middle of that. Many of you are going to argue some placings, and we get that. But we felt like, according to our consensus, as well as kind of the math that we put behind it, objectively and then subjectively, some of our thoughts about competition, head-to-head and those type of things, that's where our top 10 lies. Now, I will say, there were a few names that made our top 10 that didn't make the official top 10. Wilson, Morrison, Cold Iron, Foganolo, to name a few. That over the course of the next few weeks, including the 64 competition, we may see some of these names jockey around pretty quick. So get ready for that competition. I mean, if there's any more reason to get your eyes on a contest, that would be it, because these rankings now are going to lend some validity to where these girls, or at least some ideas, as opposed to where we're going to see these girls finish in the podium. I think we can all argue that Rhea is the odds-on favorite to win that show. It would be an upset by every stretch in the world if she didn't podium first of the show. No pressure on you, Rhea, at all. I mean, you got to get the job done. You know that. Everybody's always gunning for you. Holly, of course, as it should finish out, right, according to our rankings, Rhea, Holly, Kate, Taylor, and let's see, Diana, Carly, and Panda, in that order, right? So all those women are competing in this competition. So by default, you would think if this was a perfect ranking system, we're going to see our top 7 go in that order: Rhea, Holly, Kate, Taylor, Diana, Carly, and Panda. But we all know it's probably not the way it's going to play out. So immediately that competition is going to have some impact on the way our rankings are, but that's okay. That's what we want. We know our rankings are going to start to play themselves out over the course of this year, and these are going to be tighter and tighter. And I get it. There's always going to be a subjective nature to them. However, we're going to get a really objective look at them at that point as we approach kind of maybe, late November, December, that kind of thing, when we come into the next season, post World's Strongest Man the following year. So, there you guys go. There's your top 10 U64 rankings. Our next ranking is going to be the U90s. And what better time to do the U90 than prior to the U90 Classic over there in St. Lytham, or St. Lytham, St. Anne over there in England, and that being Luke Davies' Chaos Promotion Show. We have 30 of the best, minus a couple, and those will probably show up in our top 10, best U90 guys on the planet. So however we put that ranking together, it is going to be, it's going to be that show that's really going to take that ranking and turn it upside down on its head, because we know that show is going to be contested and the cream will rise to the top. So as subjective as our first rankings are, I would argue we're going to be further off on that initial list than we are on the 64 list, as many of you probably would agree. So that's our next one, the U90s. As far as the PSL event goes this weekend, I think I'll just let the rankings speak for themselves. You guys need to get on adlpro.live and do your live stream. I think it's like $15 or something. I don't know. I can't remember now. It's not much. I think you get a lot with that as far as discounting. They're doing a lot of promotions with this first live stream. So it's worth the penny you pay for it in respect to getting on and watching these girls and compete, which is the most important thing when it comes to lending your opinion to our rankings. If you're not watching these ladies compete, then you're not lending really much opinion when it comes to where you think they should be based on performance. Because as we all know in strong women or strongman, you can have the best show of your life and it could be one event that could take you off the podium. And we're going to recognize that when it comes to our rankings sometimes as well. And you need to be able to lend to that conversation. So we encourage you, and this is no promo for PSL or ADL Live. This is actually for the sport and the love of the sport and wanting to get to know these athletes. Get on the live stream, watch the U64 show, and lend your opinion and start the conversation about our rankings and these athletes, because every one of them deserve to be recognized.